Hi, everyone. We're Sarah and Michelle, and we're unstoppable. So, we just came off of a big weekend. It was grad weekend in Nelson. How are you
Yeah.
doing, Sarah? How are you feeling?
Yeah. Wow. All the feels. I think it feels so amazing just because with all the effort, the work that goes into it to have it happen and have it complete is amazing. And yeah, I had just so many of these touch points. This was the group, right? Last year when I had a couple athletes graduate, they had only been with me for a season. They had kind of come in. It felt like they came in fully formed and we were just a performance season. And this group was the group that started it all with me. It started with my daughter and then a couple girls came in. I mean, we had the full team. And then as ones have moved and have picked other sports and have all of these pieces, and here we are with the final four, the ones that went from the beginning to the end. And it was such a sweet moment to feel really part of that end for them, and not the end of volleyball, but this point where they're going to transition adulthood into adulting into whatever's next for them. But it was just such a sweet celebration. So
Mhm.
yeah, all the feels.
Well, I was driving my daughter and another of the girls this morning, and we got talking about we're gonna have five seniors next year, and maybe one of the tournaments when we're in a big city, we're gonna maybe we go do some grad dress shopping. And then I was almost crying already, and they're being all excited. I'm like, you guys aren't allowed to make fun of me for all the times I'm gonna cry next year as our babies.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was pretty amazing to witness them as they are stepping into this place, celebrating the end of their school journey with their friends, but also talking about what's next. And that's so exciting to see all these touch points where we've talked about, okay, it's not just about the volleyball. It's not just about the volleyball. And as I'm witnessing them, I'm like, it was never about the volleyball.
Yeah.
It was about the relationships. It was about seeing something in each of them. And okay, now I'll get to cry. So one of those athletes actually pulled me aside and when you're receiving something from a young person, and yet I was so proud of her at the same time. Wow, she's really coming from a place of maturity, but she almost grabbed me by the shoulders and was like, Sarah, I just want to tell you how important you were to me, everything that you did for me. And I'm crying and I'm her being so articulate, and so I'm having this super touching heartfelt moment and just telling her how proud I am of her. But she just said, no, you need to hear me, I'm trying to tell you, thank you. And it was so heartfelt, and it was just, yeah, it was that moment where I will carry you with me always. You have been, and each of your athletes does stick with you, but like these ones that I've been through this journey with, they're in my heart. I
Hmm.
will always think of them. I've learned so much from them. And so it was really sweet to hear that reflected back. And then there were a couple moments. There was an athlete, she played, I think, in the grade 10 year, and then chose to do academics and chose to do dance and chose to do a few other things. She came over to see me and give me a big hug and she, can I take a picture with you? Because for her, that, like, I'm thinking, you didn't choose to continue with volleyball. And I think for her, she's like, no, I chose other things. But that moment of volleyball and you as my coach, it really was that moment of reflection. Because sometimes as coaches, we feel very personal when athletes don't continue in the sport. And very often it has nothing to do with us, right? It was
Hmm.
whatever was going on for her. So that one was really emotional. And then I even had an athlete that, yeah, it's kind of been an athlete that I've pushed lots, right? I've held her to a really high standard. And she came running across the field to see me. Hi. And she wasn't even graduating, but she wanted to check in with me. And I was like, I actually noticed it. It got me to stop and be like, wow, seeing me outside of the volleyball, she wanted to connect. And I really felt that. I really felt that importance, that role as coaches that we're playing. It's not just about the court either, right? We're playing this role in people's lives.
Well, and that's that piece we've talked about, that adolescent development, and when the girls are going through their transition where they need to actively pull away from their mothers, but they need to latch on to another woman as an external, just a connection, right? That is a
Yes.
part of their natural development. And for most of the time, it's going to be a female coach. And so you've just proven it. You've played that role
Yeah.
for girls that haven't necessarily continued with volleyball, and you still had that impact on them.
Yeah. So I felt all of those were just so present. And then coaches, your setter, right? Your setter always has. And so I've had this little setter who has just been so reliable and so consistent and always doing the work and setting up nets and tending and making sure the girls are where they're supposed to be. And all of the things as a coach, I never had to ask because I just knew she was on it. And probably not that same player that's going to come and just be effusive and hugging me, a little bit more contained and reserved in her demeanor. But as I was able to have a moment with her and just tell her how proud I am of her, and you could just see her be filled with those character traits. It was always more than just the
Yeah.
volleyball. It was just always that piece. And so, yeah, it felt like
Yeah.
such a celebration.
It was so good. And I got a lot of those moments on camera too, as I was snapping pictures of you and the
Yeah.
girls hugging and talking. It was really beautiful.
Yeah. So that was the weekend. And now it is weird. I was doing a few things for camp and messaging some coaches and going, how are you doing with no volleyball?
I
Because I
know.
think I went from right from volleyball to grad. And so now I don't have a practice to plan. I don't have a tournament to book. I don't have accommodations to worry about. Wow.
Well, and I noticed I didn't full-time coach this last season, but previous to that, well, I have to plan my social life because my social life is not no longer just volleyball girls and volleyball moms. I actually need to call out friends that I haven't seen in 6 months. I say 6 months, but my friends say it's been 3 years.
Well, this is the thing with volleyball, right? It used to be a 4-month season, and then it's like now we're coaching school and club, and then we've got fundraisers, and it's a year-round event.
Yeah. And this is off topic and it is something I want to talk about on another episode, but that I especially didn't last year when for our girls that made the zone team, they went straight from school to club to zone. There was no break whatsoever. And I was really kicking myself that we did that extra tournament in the States because they could have had 3 weeks off in between. And even just that little tiny break would have been so good for them mentally and physically. It accidentally became a year-round sport. And I know that we don't want it to be a year-round sport. The
Yes.
girls' bodies need a break. They need to do different things. Their brains need a break. And also there's a lot of integration that happens when they're not playing the sport. We know this. It's statistically proven. We've seen it anecdotally. It's just true. The two girls I was driving around this morning, neither of them played club season this year. And I just told them I have zero concerns about them showing up September 1. I said, just go play Pepper at the park. Like,
Yeah.
go play Pepper. You're both super fit. You're working out. I'm zero concerns about how you're going to show up as volleyball players.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important thing. And it actually starts to get to the planning and the periodization where you can look ahead, because even off-season conditioning, the things that you do on season, that it used to be like, don't weight lift during season. Well, that's all been debunked. No, you need to be doing that strength training, but you can't do it with the same intensity, because there's no way you can go hit weights 3 times a week and practice 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. So it is nice to have an off season, because then it's okay, double down on your strength. And then as we get back to season, now it's more of a keep up your elasticity, your plyometrics, keep it working, but you can actually load in different ways when you take planned time off. But if you're not planning, you
Yeah.
kind of miss that. So I think that's a really great thing to point to that we should do, is like, how do you plan a season, but how do you plan your year?
Yeah.
And sometimes things are going to be out of your control. So how can players be determining certain things? And yeah, like maybe you got to forego grass volleyball for fun, because it might make sense that you're taking a break. So yeah, there's a few things that could be smart to
And I
talk.
feel like with parents, we get so caught up in my daughter's going to get left behind, and we need to work on that mentality. Okay, well, this wraps up perfectly into our discussion for today, which is we want to talk about 5 green flags of a great coach. And if it turns into more than five, then it's allowed to turn into more than five. The first one, which was accidental, not on purpose, is the one that you already talked about, and that a coach cares more about you than your performance, which, based on Sarah's reflections of grad, I would say check mark for you.
Yeah, high degree of care. And it is, right, it's that athlete that comes to you and goes, coach, I kind of tweaked my ankle, but I'm going to play. And I would always go, no, you're not. And they would always, what are you talking about? I care more about you, your long-term well-being. Don't feel pressure about today. We'll make it through today, we'll assess what's best, but I'm never going to push you to move through something. And that could be mental health too, right? Coach, I'm not doing well, I've got all of these things. Okay, now I'm not going to always go, okay, skip practice, go and do homework, because sometimes that's not the best thing for them either. Hey, your brain probably needs to set some other things down, but at least we're in the dialogue. It sounds like you got a lot going on in life. Can I encourage you to just become present? This 2 hours, you can be efficient. Do you have a little bit of time today you can dedicate to schoolwork? Okay, keep that earmarked. Show up for practice right now. Your body's going to like you. You're going to be distracted, and really allow them to focus and work through on that. And so if the coach isn't doing that, whether as an athlete or a parent, I think sometimes an invitation coaches we miss in certain places, or we're focused because we're, oh my God, this tournament this weekend's so big. It's okay to open up that conversation too for an athlete. Hey, coach, I've got a lot going on right now, and just be open about what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the second green flag, going into the tell the truth even when it's hard, which I would count accountability within that. So, for instance, that athletes, I need to stay home and study. And so maybe in the end, that's what they need to do because they have screwed up. But it becomes, how long have you known about this test or project? What did you do on the weekend? Why didn't you get it done? You knew we had practice and you knew that was due. So why didn't you get it done? And I think that's that piece, parents, when we make excuses for our kids and get them out of being accountable, we are doing them zero favors.
Can I tell a story? It has nothing to do with volleyball.
Yes.
Oh my God, because I totally felt I got the wool pulled over my eyes and then I had to come back. So my son had a couple things going on. He plays multi-sport, doing all these things. And school's been a bit rough. We're moving. I think he's having a lot of feelings. So there's a few things I feel he's opting out of in school, the tour at the high school. So he says to me, I don't need to go to school tomorrow. It's just PE, all of these things. You can go late. He's like, I'll trade you. I'll mow the lawn. I'll do this. And I just want to take it. So, okay. So his sister drops him off at school at 10:30. Well, turns out they were running a 5K in PE, and him and his buddy decided they didn't want to do it. And so they were going to skip.
That's funny.
And my son's pretty good. He'll usually tell me these things. He intentionally didn't tell me because he knew if he would have said, I don't want to go because it's a 5K, I would have been like, you're going. So then, okay, what are we going to do? And thankfully, actually, so he's got to run this 5K. Now, am I running it with him? What's going to happen? And he came home. I need a watch to measure my 5K. What do you mean? Is the teacher won't let me participate in PE or whatever it was until I've run this 5K, and I have to prove him by
Yes.
showing him on my watch. And I was so proud of the teacher, because how many times do they let these kids get away with this? And he pulled the wool over on my, I was thinking what we were going to do, but I was so proud of the teacher for being, no, you skipped out on that on purpose. Just because it was hard. And I mean, we're talking about an athlete. So he goes in
I
and
was going
runs
to
it
say, it's not even going to be that hard for him. He'll do it in 25 minutes and be
two
not
minutes,
even breaking a
actually.
sweat. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
he went and ran really hard, probably harder than he would have if he was with his friends, because they would have slowed down. So now he went and he pushed himself as hard as he could. So yeah, I thought it was just a really good reflection on, first of all, me not asking the right questions, right? Parents, your kids telling you, I can't go to practice. And we're, oh, okay. Well, there's some more questions to be asked there. So I totally own that I missed that. But then, yeah, I was super happy about the accountability that happened after.
That's awesome. And no, so I think here's a problem though that we see often as coming from the teacher side. So for instance, the teacher's trying to hold the child accountable. And then the parents are like, you shouldn't have to do that. And I'm going to excuse you and make up reasons why you can't do it. And so maybe the 5K is a bad example, but this is what we do. And then we take away their accountability and then we take away the life lesson.
So this goes back to a story from early coaching when I was 21 or 22. And I agree in this story. There's a few things the me of today would not do, but this is what happened. So my girls, I had some serving targets for them, and we were playing in a game. This is high school, grade 12. And I had this one young girl, really talented athlete, but she was practicing her jump serves. In practice, hey, your consistency is poor. So, yeah, but I want to make Team Alberta. Yeah, but you're playing on our high school team. Our team needs serves in to play the game. So we go in. I think we missed 15 serves in a game. And she missed every time because she jump served every time. And I was, hey, that wasn't okay. You were putting your personal development ahead of your team. Never mind, your team was having a hard time. They could have used their best player putting her serves in. So at the end of the game, I made them all go to the end line and run suicides with all the parents watching, with the other team. They were mortified. They were embarrassed. That girl didn't come to practice the next day. And I got a note from the parents saying I shamed them and she was no longer going to play for me. There's a piece to that story. I'm like, yeah, probably having them run. And they could have easily changed the behavior to not have the consequence. So we lost our best player from our team. So the long term of that story, though, was when they went to try out for Team Alberta, I happened to know the coach of the Team Alberta team. So, hey, just so you know, this is the character of that player. And it wasn't because the player missed the serves, it was because the player made a choice to put themselves ahead of their team. And that's just never okay. Yeah.
But a Team Alberta coach watching and seeing her miss her jump serve, miss it again, and keep doing it. If the coach had, the Team Alberta coach was there watching, be she doesn't have it, and she's still doing it. She doesn't care how it's affecting her team.
Right.
Jump serving to make Team Alberta in a game is not, yeah, and that's so many levels of the parent not helping the child to take accountability and how that's going to affect her. It's kind of spoiled brat behavior, right?
Well, and this is where the parents could have said, time to sit down and have a conversation with your coach. That was embarrassing. We didn't feel that was fair. And as a coach, I probably would have sat back, and a young coach, I was 24 years old. I would have been, I didn't think about it that way. That was how I was treated. Times are changing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
still, 20 years ago. And I would have owned it and been, you know what, you're right. We could have run those lines in practice. We could have had other different kinds of things to happen. Poor timing on my part. We could have had a conversation, even with the parents there, and the parents saying, hey, that didn't feel great for these young people. And we could have been in dialogue. And instead of just taking these dramatic actions, and I think that's what you're saying, parents making excuses, but also taking dramatic action. And I wasn't an abusive coach. It wasn't,
Yeah.
in my mind, it was a consequence for an action. It wasn't
Yeah.
unwarranted either. It just
Yeah.
had a feeling of being quite punitive in front of an audience. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We had to run lines once during a timeout. And I don't remember what we were doing. I think we were just in general playing bad, and their coaches were trying to shake it up and stuff. And I do remember it being embarrassing, but not demoralizing. Whereas there's a couple other girls and the parents were talking and so upset. And my mom asked me, do you want me to deal with this? I was like, no. Yeah, we were playing shitty, so we ran lines. Carry on. And so she's okay. And she didn't do anything about it. Yeah.
When even actually you're saying that, I'm thinking you weren't isolated. It wasn't one player and everybody. It wasn't a shame thing. It was as a group. You're together as a group. It wasn't pulling one person. And I have had girls do jumping jacks in a timeout to shake it up, right? And we've had girls growl and try to
Oh,
get
yeah,
their
yeah.
energy on. And they're at first they're embarrassed and they're like, nobody notices. Nobody's watching for that.
Knows when we do the growl, when we do the big aggressive stance, we go into our power stance. You can't tell in the hubbub of the gym, you can't tell what we're yelling. And I've watched around to see if we get a reaction. Zero reaction. Nobody notices, but it does make a difference to getting their energy going. We were watching the girls basketball a few years ago and they're terrible. And our town's not a basketball town yet. And for girls, but it's the girls don't know how to play. They don't know what they're doing. They look, it was kind of funny, but this dad came over and talked to me, and I coach his daughter, and he says, we need an old school coach like you. I don't know if I like that. But then he went on and talked about it's that tough love. I'm coming at them with love and respect first, and then
Yeah.
I can push. And it's not abusive pushing, it's perform. Be accountable to yourself. Show up like how you're supposed to show up. So then I felt a little bit better, but I've read this book, Coaching from the Heart, and it's Coach K, the Duke boys coach. And it talks about that. He is a coach that had high standards and accountability, but was also kindness and awareness of the whole athlete and the whole person. And I know that that young man's mother is fighting cancer right now. So I am going to treat him differently than I would if his mother wasn't fighting cancer right now. It's that awareness of coaching the whole person and then being, we're in a good place, how I can push this athlete to work harder, to be better, to, to show up
Yeah.
how I know that they can show up. But it's that accountability piece that we have to push, and we can be tougher when the more they know you love them, the harder you can be.
Well, and I would say it was, so that one athlete I was telling you, we had this moving moment. She was our athlete who really had a struggle at the end of high school season and didn't perform to her ability or to our expectations, and super disappointing. And I said to her, I said, I want you to always go back and remember how difficult that was and how that felt, because the club season you had and the fire she came back with, that built that character. I said, but I am celebrating that in you of, it wasn't always easy and you weren't always the best and amazing. You had these moments and it was how you built and grew on that. And then, of course, the amazing end story is has an outstanding provincials and is a leader and, really played hard. But the character and the place I saw her in was the struggle.
Yeah.
Place I saw her in was, okay, this didn't go well. How are you coming back from that? And she could have easily been, forget it. Volleyball's not great. I'm not playing club. And she came back from that. And, that's 2 years in a row we had that story. And it's that matters. And those athletes, those are the ones that come to me. And I didn't play them when they were seniors and they would have liked to get the playing time. Hey, but you're not showing up the way I need you to. And I know you can. You don't just get to play by default. And they knew it and they came back and worked hard and then they earned it. Where we get in this trap, right? Of if we're playing kids because they're seniors and they kind of know they're not earning it, where's the character development?
Well, and it doesn't mean anything. So for instance, this whole every kid gets a trophy. The kids know even when they're young, they know they didn't earn it and it means nothing to them. So here all the parents are, we don't want anybody to feel left out. So now we're going to make this mean nothing to all of them. And even with grad nowadays, because there's no zeros and there's no failing anybody and there's nothing, none of this kind of stuff. And so grad is a fun party weekend, but it's not an actual accomplishment. I didn't achieve this. I simply existed and I was registered at this school and now I have a diploma. Right? It just doesn't mean anything. And then we send them to university and be, okay, now I need you to overnight learn how to be accountable because you're paying $800 a course. And if you fail, you fail. Period. But you haven't learned that. And you don't believe it because you've never seen it. And so, right? It's that piece of accountability on all levels. Parents have to do it, teachers have to do it, coaches have to do it.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing that makes me think of is so my daughter is quite academic, has been accolades and awards. And this year, there's the awards night tonight. We have always been let know as a parent. And she actually messaged us, did you guys get no? And she's like, okay, I'm just preparing myself mentally. And so my response to her was, disappointing, but I want you to reflect. I saw how hard you worked. You are benefiting from the skills you've gained from working so hard. You're going on to university. You have these next goals. Honestly, if you're doing it for the reward and the award and the accolades from people outside of you, that's the wrong reason. I hope you can be okay with the disappointment. Yeah, have the feeling because that's valid, but
Mhm.
also know I'm proud of you for showing up and doing the work. You should be proud of yourself because you committed to something, whether you get an award or not. Because if you're doing it for the award, that is an empty achievement.
And that's seeking external validation. And it's important that we learn to be able to validate ourselves and be proud of ourselves for what we did. Because so maybe your daughter ended up being number two for 5 or 6 different awards and missed this one by 1% and that one by 0.5. And right, it could be as simple as that. Or it could simply be that you didn't get an email. We'll see. I guess we'll know tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be another story. But I think the other point was, would you have not played volleyball if putting more time would have got you an academic award? Would you have given up these other places in your life, the fun and the party? You went and had your friend. This was kind of the first year she kind of let loose a little, not about the party, but about finding social connection. She prioritized some friends in her life. I want my children to be well rounded. I want everybody to feel well rounded and fulfilled, not just to be doing one thing, because you do have to commit so hard if you want to be the top. But do you want to be the top, or do you just want to be super present in your life and feeling quite fulfilled? And so, on one hand, it's one of those stories where I'm disappointed for her, but is this the silver lining that she realizes, wait, spending that extra 10 hours trying to get the last percent, is that really the right exchange? Or can
Hmm.
I be happy that I also went and played intramurals and I also, went and spent some time with my friends and I went and visited my grandma, volunteer. She volunteers at a vet clinic. Yeah, that to me is more important. So while she might be disappointed, I hope she can weather through that and then see
Hmm.
on the other side.
Well, I got all my scholarships from being more student leadership. So good grades, good athlete, lots of volunteer. I worked and I did all these things. So I wasn't the best at anything, but my first year was paid for just by honestly being a good human.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And that, right? Like there's so many
yeah,
more lessons that come from that.
totally. Okay, the next one, and you and I talk about this extensively when we refer to playing time, and that is green flag number three. They develop every athlete, not just their best ones. And we could name some names of people who don't believe in that philosophy, but we won't. I do feel like that's a very old school philosophy, and you and I work very hard at making sure we're trying to pull everybody together. I feel my experience is no one person is amazing every game, especially when you're coaching 14s, 15s, 16-year-old. They're just not. And so if I've developed other players, they get a chance to play. It's just so worthwhile to expand and not just have your six players play all the time.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hands down. It makes not two or three or four players feel superior to the rest. If I'm investing in everybody, they all feel valued, but the other players notice that too. And so the other players, more important, it creates a team culture where everybody is valued for the places they're contributing. And all of those places are different. My exception is I've had some athletes where I've invested so much time and their investment doesn't always match mine. And I keep going and I keep going, and I'm a bit stubborn. So I keep going. She's going to get it. She just needs me to help her a little bit more. And I start to have less time to spread amongst the others.
Mhm.
There's a point, okay, hang on. I'm going to hold this. Here's where I want you to get to. And I'm going to invite them to come meet me there. But I'm not going to chase them, because if I'm chasing them, my attention's been lost to others. And I think
Mhm.
others notice that as well. They're like, well, why do you keep giving her
Yeah.
attention when she doesn't even try?
Yeah.
And that's not a skill thing. That's an attitude thing. It's not because they're not getting the skill.
And we've talked about that before. We can't care more than the athletes do. And even that's sometimes that's a team thing when we show up at a tournament and we're like, wow, I for sure have committed way more time and effort into this than the girls are. And it's just sometimes we have to check our drive and our ambition and make sure it matches more closely to the athletes that we may have.
Yeah. And I think that as a coach, that was a big learning for me. The result is not about me. That's what I like. I led them and I guided them, but then I had to let them go and play the game, and win or lose, I still showed up and did my job. And if I wanted just to win, maybe I would just focus on the couple athletes that are gonna get all the ball. 80% of the balls can get set to them. Well, we're probably gonna win. But I'm like, no, that's not our strategy. And I
Mhm.
encourage my setter to move it around and do other things.
Well, and also like when they're even up to 15, let's say U12s to U15s, you can't tell who your best player is going to be at 16, 17, 18 based on how they show up as U12s. And if you don't commit to developing them, for one, you're going to lose all the tall girls. If you only develop the ones who are actually already good and showing promise, then you're losing all the tall gangly girls, which is going to do you no favors when they're 16, 17, 18 and they start pounding balls. It's just that piece of develop all, and then you lose a girl, maybe she goes to play full-time basketball, or she has to work, or she's gone for a season because she's got a knee injury. There's so many reasons why you want to develop all of the girls, 12 girls, 15 girls, as many as you can manage appropriately.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about unstoppable and where yours and my drive has been and our intention. And I was talking to this woman and she plays beach volleyball. And she's like, oh my God, where were you when I was in high school? I tall, gangly, athletic, but she's like, nobody ever recognized that in me, and that I wanted to be there, but I just needed a little bit more encouragement. And all of that things, the things that were going on in my head, the limiting belief. Oh, if somebody would have talked to me about that. And now, as an athlete, she plays beach volleyball all the time. I so wish I would have had that experience.
Yeah,
So, yeah, coaches, parents, it is important to be not so focused on the wins, but on the life pieces.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So this next one is basically the Unstoppable program all in one. And it's they teach life lessons through sport. And that is the whole point. And sometimes it's more about just highlighting what the life lesson is, but everything you learn in sport is applicable to life.
Yeah.
Resilience, accountability, commitment, teamwork, leadership, like all of that stuff. Handling adversity, dealing with difficult bosses, right? It's
Everything.
it's literally everything. We see it in our girls, even in how they show up. I have volleyball girls sitting at my kitchen table complaining about a teacher. And so then, of course, because I can't help myself, okay, let's back it up. What's the story here? Immediately, I'm thinking, this sounds like a girl problem, not the teacher problem. but I'm going to let them talk it out and explain the situation. And okay, so based on your version, I do see where you're coming from, but I'm still not buying it. But like so then we just talk about, okay, go to the teacher, have the conversation, explain what you were thinking or whatever it may be, sort it out, go
Yeah.
sort it out.
Yeah. Learn to advocate for yourself, right? Find ways of, okay, where are the places that I can make effective change?
Yeah. Yeah. As simple as that.
It's amazing.
I know, right? Okay, so the last one we have is that a great coach makes athletes want to come back.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's that finding that balance between pushing them hard, but it's still being fun that they want to do it again. And one of the drills that we like to end with is 7 Up, which is just a puke drill. But the number of times the girls are, let's do 7 Up. And I'm like, what? I mean, I remember loving it. I just love that they're like, yes, we want to finish with a puke drill.
Well, let me see what I can do.
Mhm.
Let me push myself to that place where, yeah, I just get to see, can I do hard things? And that's it, right? We don't learn those pieces about ourselves when times are easy. We learn it when we have a little bit of suffering. We learn it through the hard times. And I think the same, you feel so connected to your buddy when you're doing 7 Up together with a buddy. You feel you rely on that teammate. Again, life lessons, right? Do hard things with other people. You don't have to do it alone. You belong to something bigger than yourself. And there is so much motivation. And you're going to work harder knowing that you're contributing to that other person. It's not just about you.
Yeah. So I do like these questions, even though we're getting it to be a long one. But here's some questions to ask to know that if you're on the right path of the athletes wanting to come back. Do they leave practice feeling energized? That's a good one. Do they improve and still enjoy the sport? Do former athletes come back to visit, which is a very good sign of your high school coach. And it shows as much as he's not a lovey-dovey guy, but he has the respect of the girls, and you know that he loves all of his girls.
Yeah. Yeah. We were his girls.
You know that, and you know that, like, even I just coached with him, but I felt that, and I definitely had always wished that I got to be coached by him. You know that you matter to him.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I'm more lovey-dovey than you are,
Yeah.
and you're more lovey-dovey than some of our other coaches in our system, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to all be the same. You don't have to be a coach that cries every time she hands out an award because she's just so proud of them. I don't know who does that, but whatever.
But you can totally cry when you see them graduate because you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's one of my girls, right?
Waterproof mascara that day. So do they recommend the coach to others?
Which for our club, we have players coming from other communities because these are coaches you want to play for. And these are teams that you will feel part of a team. And that to me, almost more than me, I feel so proud that we have a club that has a culture that is being talked about, that you want to come play for the club because the culture is, it gives a place for everybody.
Hmm.
And that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does that mean we do the best by everyone at all times? No. You and I have both talked about different athletes where we feel I let that person down. And I was going to say I've failed that athlete. And I feel like that's being way too hard on me. But I do feel like I didn't handle that right. And I could have done that better. And I think I can say I let that athlete down.
Right.
Yeah. So I can say things like that, but I have to watch my language because I think saying I failed them is being too harsh on myself.
Taking responsibility out of the hands of the athlete. Because anytime we have something that doesn't work relationally, yes, I'm 100% responsible for my behavior, but they also need to be 100% responsible for their behavior. So if I take responsibility and say, I failed that athlete, what was that athlete doing?
Oh,
Like, where
yeah.
were they showing up? Right. And so,
Yes.
like, right. So you need to be able to say, I'm going to own my part and I let them down. But there was also a place where had they leaned in, and that's where you need sometimes like, hey, you got to lean in and go through this difficult conversation. Oftentimes we'll come out the other side stronger because now we've figured a few things out, right? And so I've got a couple I'm thinking of where, yeah, if that athlete had leaned in, I had no issues. It was never personal for me. It was just, oh, we missed. You didn't feel met by me. And that's where I let you down. But
Hmm.
I didn't know that. So if I don't know, there's no way I can take action.
Well, and you can't be everything to everybody. So try to do the best you can by the most we can, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's so easy to say and so much harder to actually do and feel.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your first takeaway?
It's not about the volleyball. Great coaches see the bigger picture. It's not about the volleyball, it's not about the wins. It is about teaching life skills, but it's about connecting with the athletes on the personal level.
Yeah.
So it's not about the volleyball.
Totally agree. And then I think one of the most powerful ones for me is a reminder to all of us, parents, teachers, coaches, everybody, is the accountability. If we don't allow our students, children, athletes to be accountable, we are doing them a great disservice for the rest of their life. We can't take accountability away from them and then think that they're going to go on to be productive adults.
Yeah. Yeah. Stop making excuses for them. Let them
Mhm.
sit in that tension of sometimes messing up.
So, one that I just jotted down, the coach that's developing all the athletes and not just the best ones. And I wrote down about the athlete being as committed as the coach is. So, parents, if you feel your child is not getting the care and attention that you think you want them to have, you got to make sure that your athlete's showing up in a way that's actually meeting the coach. Because if we go in gung ho and after a month she's not responsive, she's not trying what we're trying to get her to do, she's not showing up and helping with nets. If it's the end of the season and she doesn't know how to take the damn net at the gym that we've been practicing at for 4 months, now coach is going to get a little pissy, right?
There's a pretty clear explanation of why this was a challenging relationship.
You got to know on day one of school season, that athlete's going to be putting the nets up and taking them down. And then I'll be like, good, now you know.
Now you know. Yeah.
And let this not be a problem in your life ever, ever again. And I will call her out in front of everyone and be like, you are putting the nets up. But with love. I will call her out with love.
Because again, right, we've said to athletes, when we stop providing feedback, it's usually because we've given up. Because I've
Mm-hmm.
given you so much. It's that athlete. I'm showing up. I'm giving you these invitations. I'm going to hold you accountable. Set the nets up. And when I stop harassing you about it, it's because I'm like, no, she's not responding to the invitation. So just know when that coach is on you, it's not that they don't like you. It's usually that they see something.
I'm laughing because this sounds like accountability in a marriage. By the time the wife stops snagging, it's because she is out the door.
Life lessons.
So I was gonna say, sport is life. Wow. Now we're venturing into marriage conversations.
I
Well, we
think so.
think we're funny and brilliant, of course.
Of course.
Okay, well, I'm going to do a plug because one of the things I notice is that we so rarely talk about our Unstoppable Athlete program. So unstoppableathlete.ca to see what else we've got in there.
And that is Michelle, and I'm Sarah, and together we are unstoppable.